Now that you have a nice tidy wedge all taped up at the corners, you're going to lay it on a piece of tin foil and wrap it neatly. So you see I am rubbing over that corner so it stays adhered to the wedge, folding it over and taping it down. So as you wrap your wedge, you're going to make sure that your corners and edges stay defined. I'm folding over and rubbing that tin foil so that it sticks to the form underneath it. Take your time to fold, tape, and smooth any lumps and bumps. Try not to pull and try not to crumple the tin foil. I've got everything folded down well. If you've got too much extra tin foil in one spot, you can just cut it off. That's fine. But you want the whole wedge covered in tin foil because that's going to be a barrier between the cardboard of the wedge and the wet plaster. You don't want the cardboard to get wet or else it's going to sink in. Okay, looks like I am all done, and it's going to be on to the second stage. Once you have the tinfoil on your wedge, you can go ahead and begin to start plastering, or you can add decorations to your cake. I'm taking a small wad of tinfoil. I'm going to wad it up into a loose ball. Loose. Don't squeeze it too tight. The more you squeeze the tinfoil, the smaller your shapes are going to get. So you have to be comfortable with loosely handling the tinfoil. So I'm making a cherry for on top of my cake, and I am taping it down. Next, I'm going to make some frosting on the edge of the cake by rolling a loose cylinder. See, you can look down that hole. It's loose. It's not squeezed tight. A loose cylinder of tin foil, and figuring out how long it's going to be, cutting it to size, and taping it down. On the other hand, you might like the way it looks if you squeeze it down. I'll show you what the difference is. To show you what happens when it's squeezed, I'm going to take some of that loose cylinder, the leftover part, and I'm going to squeeze it tight now. So the first thing is you're going to get a tray with a piece of plastic on it for your wedge. Then a bowl of warm water. Both of those stay on the plastic. You'll also need a paper towel to dry your hands off later. And you're going to go to the back of the room and get 8 to 10 sheets of plaster cloth. You're going to put that behind your tray so that you don't have to worry about water getting onto it. Listen up carefully, you guys. This is important information. Okay, when you're ready to start plastering, take one sheet, hold one edge with both hands, dip it in the water, and scrape it off the edge of the bowl. You need to keep that sheet wide and then lay it onto your armature. Rub it with your finger to smooth it out. You're going to see lots of little pores, little openings in the cloth, and they will close up once you smooth it out with your finger. So you see how nice and smooth that is. In just a minute, I'll show you what it looks like before you smooth it out. I'm changing the light so that you can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to do it again. 2 hands, dip, scrape, let it drip a little bit over the bowl, and lay it onto the armature. Do you see those little pores on top? Wait, let me turn the lights off. Do you see those? That is what you want to smooth away. You want those little holes to be covered up by blending on top of the plaster. Okay, so I'm fast forwarding on high speed right now, and I'm trying to make sure that every time I lay another piece of plaster down, I'm laying it down on top of the tin foil. I don't want to layer too much on top of the old plaster pieces. I want to find new areas to put the plaster on top of so that I don't waste my sheets. Remember to rub the plaster down, try to smooth out the folds, smooth out the edges so that they blend into each other as best as you can. You're going to have to turn your wedge around, and that's why we have the plastic underneath, because if we kept the paper on the tray, the wet plaster would stick to it. It won't stick to the plaster, which makes it a perfect surface to work on. It's going to be a little bit harder to plaster over your decorations. Just be patient. Take your time. And use your common sense. I'm going to squeeze that plaster in around the cherry so that the shape stays defined. And this will all dry hard. So even though it feels a little soft right now, have faith that the plaster will do what it's supposed to do. Got to go back for some more plaster cloth. I'm just going to get a couple of pieces and I'm going to cut them into smaller pieces so I can fit them into the small areas that still need a little bit of plaster covering. When it's time to clean up, put your cake slice onto a tray at your table. There should be enough room on each tray to fit everybody at your table's cake slice. Put your label right next to it so we know whose is whose, and put it on the floor to dry. Very important, do not dump the water down the sink. There is a big blue bin in the back sink. Just pour as much clear water as you can out of your bowl, and all that white residue can stay in the bowl, and I'll discard of it safely.